Hi witches! So today I wanted to talk to you about consumerism in witchcraft, particularly about counterfeit items. So, also again, reading off my phone, forgive me, it's just the easiest way to avoid me having to edit lots. So, unfortunately, when anything gains popularity, people want to make a quick buck and people try to latch on to whatever is popular. So, unfortunately, witchcraft and spirituality has very much been popular recently. And so that usually takes the form of shops which are run by people that have no history or no real experience in what it is that they're actually selling. So there have been a lot more shops popping up recently, people selling things like crystals, people selling witchcraft items, and they haven't really been practicing witchcraft for very long at all. So, that can be problematic in itself. But I mean, everyone's going to start somewhere. So there's a few things wrong with this. So as witchcraft and paganism is an earth-based practice, one could argue that we need to be doing what we can to be looking after the earth. And one way that many people do that is by reducing their waste, specifically trying to avoid plastic waste. And I mean, there's a whole lot of things. You can Google zero waste movement, all of that kind of thing. But what really goes against that whole idea is cheap, mass-produced witchcraft items that we often see in these cheap shops popping up. Now, I could go into great detail about this, but I'm sure that we've all been into shops where we've seen things like those multicoloured dream catchers with the heavily dyed plastic feathers and all sorts of things like that. Statuary that's made out of plastic, just cheap kind of throwaway things that are actually not meant to last, all that kind of stuff. So, but the thing I really wanted to talk about today was the issue of counterfeit items. So if you haven't heard about counterfeit items before, let me just ruin your idea of witchcraft being wholesome and full of love and light and people that aren't going to take advantage of you, because unfortunately there are people out there in witchcraft that will try and take advantage of you, especially when money is involved. So nowadays, with the rise of consumerism, we have counterfeit all sorts of things because, let's face it, everyone wants a bargain, and I completely understand that. I've mentioned before how I grew up poor. I did not have a lot of money, and so I went without a lot of witchcraft tools. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they were shocked when I told them that I've only had a deck of tarot cards for about 2 or 3 years. They said, "What do you mean? You've been a witch since you were a kid." I said, "Yeah, but I haven't had tarot cards for that long." So there are lots of counterfeit items. Tarot cards are a big one. Oracle cards are a big one. There are fake crystals around. People which are selling crystals as something that they're actually not. And there are also now counterfeit statues. Now you're probably thinking, how on earth can a statue be counterfeit? So I will include some images around here to show you. But basically, there's been people producing witchcraft statuary for many years now. A really well-known one that has been popular is this one here called the Millennial Gaia by Oberon Zell. That's been around for many, many years. And then recently there's been another company which has made something very similar. I'll put that over here, called Nemesis Now, and they call these their Mother Earth statues. Just to make you more confused, they actually produce both. They produce the Mother Earth statues and the Millennial Gaia statues by Oberon Zell. But anyway, so this video was inspired because there was a very well-known witchcraft shop which I noticed was selling a knockoff version of one of these statues. Now, I asked them about that. I probably didn't word it as nicely as I should have. I think I worded it as, "Aren't these one of those knockoff statues from Wish and eBay?" Anyway. Now, look, I then further elaborated and I said, look, I just wanted to point out, if you do a Google image search, you'll see that they are not meant to look like this. I think perhaps your supply has been dodgy. I think you should investigate this. And they removed my comment. I then messaged them back. No response yet, and the post selling the statues is still up. So why are counterfeits bad? So I want you to think of a time when you've invested hundreds, if not thousands of hours into making something. Now imagine that this creation was something like an artwork or an oracle deck or a statue. So let's say you start selling it, you make a little bit of money, not enough, but enough to make you feel like, okay, it's worth me continuing to create and make things. So now a few months or even a year goes by, and you come across something that looks familiar. You might have even had a friend that sent it to you and said, doesn't this look a bit like yours? Yeah, this does look a bit like mine. Except the more you look at it, the more that you see this isn't taking inspiration from what you've created. It's a downright copy. Except they've tried to copy your elements, but because they're trying to cut costs, and because they perhaps don't have as much time or skill as you did, it doesn't look like yours. In fact, when you compare the two side by side, some might say that it's actually an abomination. So you think surely people aren't going to buy this, except that they do, because it's cheap. And lots even might think that it's actually yours. They might even get annoyed and start sending you messages saying, hey, how come my version is missing this one, like the pictures on your website have? Now, this happens all the time with Oracle and Tarot card deck creators. I know that Lucy Cavendish mentioned this in the Witchcast. She often gets people asking her, they say, can you just send me a copy of your guidebook because I bought a deck of your cards and it doesn't have a guidebook. Or some people might say, I've lost my guidebook, all sorts of things like that. And she explained that what happens is that a lot of these counterfeit tarot and oracle decks, what happens is they might have a QR code on the box, or they might have like a link to a PDF to download for the book, but they don't come with actual guidebooks, and they're usually also printed on really terrible cardstock, things like that. So calling it a cheap imitation is pretty accurate. Now, the same thing has happened recently with those statues that I showed you earlier. So this is one that I have seen around on some witchcraft shops. Now, I just want to be very clear that mistakes can happen, and I realize that not every shop that sells counterfeits are aware that they are counterfeits. Genuine mistakes can happen, and that is completely fine. Everyone makes mistakes. However, if businesses remove your comments or block you for kindly pointing out that their version doesn't look like other versions, then they might not be completely ignorant to it. So if you say, hey, the painting on this statue doesn't look quite right, or I think this deck is supposed to come with a guidebook, then hopefully they should respond with something like, thanks for bringing this to our attention. We will look into this. We will investigate with our supplier. That's what businesses should do. However, that's not always the case. So if businesses become defensive and paint you out to be the one in the wrong, that's a red flag. So I'm not going to go into detail on how to spot fake card decks, how to spot fake statues, how to spot fake and dyed crystals. They would require entire videos of their own. We have guides up in the Australian Witchcraft Facebook group. I will link them down below. Honestly, I have so much that I could say about consumerism in witchcraft. This could be a whole series of videos, but as I said, I'm limited on time, so we shall see what happens. But until then, hopefully this has brought your awareness to the issue, and try your hardest to not buy counterfeit products, because it really ultimately hurts the original artists and creators. And the more times this happens to artists and creators, then the less likely they're going to be to want to be making special items like this in the future. So I just wanted to share this message. I hope that you are all well. If you're in lockdown like me, take care, and I will see you next time. Bye.